with Midnight Sun finally coming out after over a decade now, let's talk about revisiting Twilight. I revisited Twilight, and it's been a ride. So I will say this, I firmly acknowledge the issues with Twilight. They're not well written. There is some very interesting stuff going on, and story structure and character things are all over the place. I also think the book community online, doing what they always do, are reading way too much into it and looking for deeper meanings and subtext where there really isn't any. You know, she isn't Hemingway. She is a suburban housewife. Subtext and depth is not something you get from Twilight. You get surface level wish fulfillment. And I will say this, Stephenie Meyer definitely improved as a writer reading them and actually going into things like The Host, which is still one of my favourite I don't even know if it's YA or adult, but The Host is a phenomenal book. It has its problems, but it's completely utterly unique in many levels. And she's also written some really good crime type thrillery stuff that's actually been interesting. Again, it's quite throwaway, but it's still interesting. So revisiting Twilight. So each book I've reread. So I started with Twilight, obviously, and what I will say about Twilight is nothing happens for the first half. Then the James storyline kicks in, and you're like, oh, now I get it. The actual structure of the book is strange. It's all from Bella's head, and I feel like there should have been more editing done. Like, word repetition is really annoying with Meyer as a writer. Like, the word repetition of these books just kind of keep repeating itself. Like the words like topaz. Eyes like topaz get old. And they suffer from a lot of issues that YA still has now, that the background characters are far more interesting than the main characters, like Charlie's backstory, or any of the Cullen family backstory. I mean, Jasper's backstory would be fascinating. You know, Confederate soldiers and a vampire army? Come on, who wants to read that book? And that's what I find really strange. Bella is very obviously self-insert, and at the end of the day, Stephenie Meyer pretty much admits that Bella is her. And again, there is nothing wrong with self-insert if it's done well. I'm in two minds with Bella. Some minutes I really like her, next minute I want to slap her really hard across the room. The problems with Twilight are the back characters being so much stronger than the mains. Then I read Into New Moon, and actually I think New Moon is structured better. It doesn't feel as rushed, the editing is tighter, but it still kind of suffers from some same issues. I also think Stephenie Meyer's may be clumsy, but you can definitely tell her evolution as a writer from those. And there isn't a huge amount to say about New Moon, although I will say the Italy section of the book is probably the best bit. And actually her relationship with Jacob is interesting. Again, Jacob is very much an interesting character that doesn't get a huge amount of love, and a lot of his tribe are very interesting characters that don't get seen. Like, I want to know these backstories. I want to know what makes these characters interesting, because I feel like she wrote these not quite knowing the direction where she was going, and I get that first-time writer vibe. When it comes down to it, New Moon is a marked step up, but it's still kind of lingering in the not much is happening, it's quite flat. Eclipse. This is more action-oriented. This kind of has more of a story from the get-go. You get more going on. The characters are a bit more rounded. I would say it's actually far better written. The language is better used. Word repetition is gone. It's also slightly darker tone, which surprised me revisiting it. Again, background characters are more interesting, and that will bring us into the little novella, The Short Second Life, which I'll count as kind of one of the same. It's one of the other characters, and again, another interesting character. At least this character got some love and got something more from it than just, oh, interesting character in the background, hi, bye. Eclipse is more action-oriented. It's a faster novel. The writing is faster, the pace is faster, which can sometimes be to its detriment. There's not a lot of room to breathe in Eclipse, which was bizarre. Breaking Dawn. Now, this book divided fans because I think the films did a far better take on it than the book. Like, the ending, that epic battle that was literally just a vision, actually got explained in the film. And I'm like, that was missing. Like, there was all this build-up and like, ooh, we die, bye-bye. But I think I think the description in Breaking Dawn is far better. This is a far more adult vibe. It still definitely falls into the YA cliches of the era. The YA cliches that really should have died a long time ago, but people still write them. They just reskin them as shitty fantasy novels. I mean, Breaking Dawn I actually really like, but it's very long. It feels long and it slows down in the middle. I like the stuff from Jacob's perspective. I think he deserved a book on his own. I think he was a far more interesting character than a lot of them. Like, him as a wolf and in this mindset is just really well done, and I was actually surprised. Then I visited the gender-swapped anniversary Twilight. Now, this one's interesting because, again, it still has the problems Twilight because it's Twilight. The writing is far better. The story is sped up. The characters are a bit more developed. There's a bit more going on with the characters. And that's something I found bizarrely interesting. Like, there's a bit more fleshing out. I do hope, like I said in my Midnight Sun video, that these characters are explored a bit more. More of the Cullens story is explored. Let's talk about the other stuff. So I own the graphic novels, Volume 1 and Volume 2, which make up Twilight. The graphic novels do a lot of fat cutting, and actually are a better way of reading Twilight. They're nice artwork, tells the story in a convincing, nice way, and it paints the visuals. It's a very pretty book. Again, style over substance, but it does a lot of fat trimming, and it's an interesting way to read it. I've never read the New Moon graphic novels because, for some unknown reason, they vanished without a trace. I could never get them here, and when I do see them, they're about 150 quid, so I'm not paying that for New Moon graphic novels each. I revisited the films as well, which was a bizarre experience because the first one is definitely a Honda commercial. Like, lots of really pretty scenery, and overall the films still have the same issues as the books, and they have the same... Oddly enough, they're the same. Although I think Breaking Dawn Part 2, that end battle is bloody epic and really well done. What I find strange with Twilight, though, is that the films have this bizarrely artificial look. Like, some of the CGI in these films looks bad, and I'm like, there's a lot of money here. Like, have we not seen the CGI baby? We don't talk about CGI baby. That thing's disturbing. But you come into it, you kind of watch them, and I get why people like them. I get why they're guilty pleasures for me and many people. What's funny is the people that are going to be buying Midnight Sun aren't teenagers. They aren't kids. They're going to be my age. 20-somethings, 30-somethings who read it first time around. I accept the problems with Twilight completely. I know, there is no way around them. They're glaringly obvious. But like I said in my video, the nostalgia is high. I have to turn my critical brain off. And it's sometimes nice being a teenager for a little while. And oddly enough, me as a teenager and Bella have a shit ton in common, and I think that's true of everyone. Bella is a very blank slate character. So, there we go. What else do I want to add to this? It'll be interesting to hear your opinions, especially if you were there at the time, and it's been quite surreal rereading Twilight at the age that I am. I can enjoy them for what they are, and there is far worse. I also think they get unfairly vilified. There were a lot of books before Twilight, and media, that used exactly the same tropes as Twilight. Exactly the same. But no one bats an eyelid at them. No one talks about the Vampire Diaries books anymore. They're sort of held with quite high regard and a bit of a love affair. I think Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series kind of in that vein. They remind me of the Vampire Diaries and that 90s, early noughties YA, before YA was YA. Stephenie Meyer, like it or not, opened a hell of a lot for people. She helped a lot of writers. She opened the doors for publishing, and she changed the industry. If it wasn't for Stephenie Meyer, would things be the same now? No, I firmly believe that. So, like I said, tell me what you think in the comments below.